everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We have two very special guests today, very talented people. We have musician and filmmaker Spider One and actress and filmmaker Krsy Fox. They're here to talk about their upcoming film, Allegoria, which is going to be releasing on Shudder and on demand on August 2nd. So Krsy, Spider One, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
And Spider, thanks for taking the time to talk with us today. I know you're currently on the Freaks on Parade tour. How's that been going?
Yeah, it's been great. This is the first day off we've had. And it's been amazing. Crazy. Yeah. Like if you were a teenager in 1999, this is your dream tour, you know, Rob Zombie, Mudvayne, Static X, and Powerman 5000. It's like getting a time machine. But yeah, it's been amazing. Every night's been crazy, like 12,000 screaming maniacs. So couldn't be happier.
That's so cool. You know, it's so funny because I was before, you know, when I was like thinking about things that, to talk about, I was like, what year was Powerman 5000? And I looked at 99, and it brings me back to this, like, such a specific time in my life. Thinking about, but like you guys were such a defining band in that time period. All the bands you just mentioned, but I also think like Limp Bizkit had a couple of songs that came out that year. Seven Dust, like there's so many defining bands, and you guys were a major part of that. I
mean that whole time period between like 97 and 99 was crazy. For so many bands came out, and we were we were lucky enough to be a part of that time where there were so many great tours to be a part of, like the Ozfest and everything. And but yeah, I mean, we started in Boston in like 92. We'd play Providence. Remember there was a club called the Living Room?
Yes.
Maybe you guys remember that one. We'd play there all the time. They had a pole in the middle of the stage. It was just, but and Club Babyhead was another one in Providence that we'd play.
I knew you were going to mention that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What was the scene like when you guys kind of, reached like the height of your popularity at that time? What was that like for you? How'd that change your life?
Yeah, I mean, it was nuts because we didn't ever expect it. When we started doing music, it was no real master plan. We just see if we could write a song, see if we could play a show, and then it just started to grow. And we were, I guess, fortunate at the time. MTV still was around and still played rock music. So we had, we were a band for years and years before we got a record deal, and then we put a record out on DreamWorks that did okay, but it wasn't until the second one then we released the song When Worlds Collide, which kind of changed everything and took off, and sort of 10 years of struggling became like overnight success, and suddenly it seemed like everyone knew who we were.
And Krsy, you're also part of the band Krsy Fox. You have written several #1 hits and top 10 radio hits. Are you currently working on anything with the band, and will we ever hear a Powerman 5000 and Krsy Fox collaboration?
Well, it's funny you ask that. Spider and I actually had this little side project we were doing for fun called Dead is Punk, where it's sort of more rap based.
Oh, okay.
It's a really fun project. It's out there, people can find it. There's a few songs, and we performed it. We've actually toured together before, so we performed a song or two together. And then I've been Krsy Fox has been on hiatus pretty much since COVID, because we got so deep into the film stuff, but I'm sure soon. And I actually just wrote a bunch of songs, co-wrote with the band Theory of a Dead Man for their new record. So that's going to be out soon. So that's really exciting. But we've just been so into the film world right now that it's kind of taken up a lot of my time.
Yeah. Understandable.
Speaking of your films, you also, aside from this project and your upcoming projects, you're also in one of the Underworld movies.
Yeah.
Where you were played a vampire, which, seeing you here, like you totally look like you would be in an Underworld vampire film. I totally picture that. What was that experience like for you?
It was the coolest thing. It kind of really made me excited about the possibility of making films, and just getting to do a creature, of any kind is really cool. And obviously the budget on that film was ridiculous, and the actors were ridiculous, and just getting to go to that set and the amount of details that they focused on. And Len Wiseman, that director, he's so involved and hands-on, and he's the type of director that, I want to be and I think that's really important. Every little detail was important to him, and the music was really important to him. And so, yeah, a lot of the excitement of me making my own films came from working on films like that. And also just loving to be a creature and getting to be a vampire or a monster in something is really, really fun.
Yeah.
Girls don't get that a lot, you know?
Yeah. So Spider, also I noticed that you grew up in Massachusetts, not far from us. And we were just kind of talking about some of the local places that you performed. And we had like guests like Tony Todd that, you know, lived in Rhode Island for like 5 years. And we talked about some of his favorite spots he came to. Like, what are some local spots that you like to go to when you're back home?
Well, it's funny. I just went back to Boston not long ago, and a lot of places are gone now. But it was so cool to be back in that city because that was such a big part of. You know, I was born in a town called Haverhill, which is about 40 miles north of Boston, where there isn't much to, you know, do there. But as soon as I could, I moved to Boston, and you know, I used to always just hang out in Kenmore Square, and there was a club called the Rat that used to be there that is unfortunately no longer there. And that was really where I started. You know, that's where Powerman would play all the time. And but it's such a great city, man. It was really fun to go back there and just hang out, like in the Fenway where I used to live, and you know. But it's changed a lot too. It's gotten a lot nicer and fancier from what I remember.
Let me ask you a question, because you guys mentioned the little collab you guys had, and being like rapping, like having rap in it, and you know, Spider, like the genre that like new metal, I don't know if you like that term or not, but like that's kind of influenced by rap as well. So is that something that like you listen to outside of like what metal and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I love all genres of music as long as it's good. But yeah, rap was a big part of my like influence growing up. I mean, there was a couple of forms of music really punk rock is what inspired me to make music, because it was the first time I ever heard anything that made sense to me and that I thought like, well, maybe I could do that. You know what I mean? Because before that I was listening to, you know, whatever was on the radio, and it seemed very unachievable, you know what I mean? But then all of a sudden I discovered, you know, the Ramones and the Clash and the Sex Pistols, and then a lot of hardcore bands, Black Flag or whatever, and then even further local Boston hardcore bands, and really got deep into that scene. And so that was the music that really made sense to me, because it wasn't about being some proficient guitar player or a singer with a beautiful voice. It was just about an energy and an attitude. And I got the same thing when rap sort of exploded, you know, in the late 80s, early 90s. For me, it was the same kind of thing. It was about an attitude and not about, you know, necessarily musicianship and stuff. So those two forms of music had a lot to do with shaping my tastes, and also, you know, kind of how Powerman is this kind of eclectic mix of a lot of different styles of music.
Yeah. Okay. I always wondered that, because I know, you know, you think about some of the bands at that time, and there was such a heavy rap influence, and I always wondered like, well, what inspired them to kind of go that route? Like,
I think, you know, I honestly think a lot of that had to do, you got to think back then in the mid 90s, it was very much the time of the explosion of like the iPod, you know what I mean? When everybody had their music on shuffle. And I think that had a lot to do with it, where you'd be listening to, you know, Slayer, and then Public Enemy would come on, and then something else would come on, and I think a generation of kids grew up, you know, feeling it was okay to like all different kinds of music, and it made sense to them. Whereas before that, it was very much like you were either metal or punk rock or this or that, and those barriers broke down, and then you saw all these bands go, yeah, man, let's do it all. Let's put it all together in a blender and make a weird sounding band, you know?
Yeah. So as horror fans, we all have a cool story of how we were first introduced to the genre. How do you guys get involved in horror, and what are some of your favorite films?
For me, my parents didn't really limit things that I could watch. They weren't into horror or anything like that, but I discovered early on, like really young, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it literally terrified me to like the core of my being. And then I just wanted to watch it again right away, because nothing made me feel so so many things at once and so terrified. And so that film was really influential. And then also, just given my age, films like The Craft and the original Scream, that, you know, I was like 11, you know, when that was coming out. So I was like, oh, these girls are there. Like, those are the girls I want to hang out with. So a lot of films like that really influenced me, and the way I write, or even the way I act. Spider's even pointed out, he's like, I see some like Nev Campbell moments and some of your choices with your acting. And I'm like, that's really cool, because, you know, she was someone that I grew up watching. So yeah, definitely that was a very, very big influence for me.
Yeah, and for me, it was like as early as I can remember. You know, I feel fortunate to have grown up in the 70s and the 80s, where everything seemed to be based around monsters and music. You know, I remember Saturday morning cartoons were always, you know, the Groovy Ghoulies or whatever, you know, and then in Boston, there was a channel, I don't know if you're probably too young to remember, it was Channel 56. And every Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, they would have this show called Creature Double Feature. And they would show 2 horror movies. So you might get Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, followed by I Was a Teenage Werewolf or something. And so every Saturday, me and Rob would plop our asses in front of the TV and watch Creature Double Feature. And so, you know, and then, you know, finding all the classic Universal stuff and King Kong. And, you know, I'm also old enough to have seen Jaws in the theater, The Shining in the theater. So, you know, these are things that have been with me since I was a little kid.
Yeah, those are classic films right there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about One Fox Productions. You both created this platform to create homegrown horror sci-fi films. How does it feel to make films with your own style?
I mean, it's kind of what we always wanted to do. You know, we started out doing music videos, and we both wanted to get into making features and doing more narrative-based projects. And so honestly, when the pandemic hit and we realized, oh, there's no touring, we got to shift here. And I was really missing acting, but I also wanted to create films as well. And so we just went for it. And we started out, we did a couple short films, and then like, you know what, this thing isn't going away. We should shoot for a feature. And we have made 4 features since 2020, which is crazy. And we just kind of learned how to do everything ourselves in-house. Like, you know, I do all the post on the films and the editing, and, you know, whether Spider writes and directs something and I'll produce with him, or vice versa. So it's just been this really creative, collaborative thing that has been really cool. Our film that's coming out after Allegoria, we co-wrote together, which is something new that we haven't done. So yeah, it just keeps building. And yeah, we just really wanted to take control of what we're making and the content we're putting out there. And we realized that we can, and no one was going to get in our way or stop us. And, you know, people have become really excited about what we're doing, which is kind of the dream, exactly what we wanted.
Yeah, I mean, we just decided not to wait around for, you know, if you could spend a lifetime waiting for someone to knock on your door and say, hey, you guys want to make a movie? But that's really not going to happen. So, you know, we had when we started coming, you know, sort of toying with the idea of making movies, we sort of reached out to other people we knew and maybe to try to partner with them. And it just, nothing ever went anywhere. It was always just a lot of talk and no action. And we just decided that let's just do it ourselves and we'll figure it out. You know, we'll find the money, we'll find the way to do it. We knew a lot of great actors, so that was going to be, you know, we had that advantage. And our team, we have the most incredible team, our cinematographer and our sound people and just our effects people. So everybody was just excited to make something. And especially when this all started, it was like no one was working. So all the actors were they're like, I feel like I haven't acted. I feel like I'm not even myself. And same with, you know, just shooting something, or just our effects girls being like, I just get to make a monster today. This is what I want to do. This is why I'm here. So it's kind of created this thing where now we all have such a loyalty to each other that we use the same people over and over again. And it's become this bigger thing.
That's awesome.
I really, sorry, Brandon, I was just gonna say, I really appreciate like just that ability to like take a risk and say, this is what we want to do, and not just wait around for that, you know, for something to come your way. I think that's the mindset of some people is like, oh, just wait for this opportunity when that time's right. But like at some point you really do just have to take action and take risks.
Yeah, we're all guilty of it. You know, you convince yourself that you need permission or somebody has to help you, or I don't know, maybe you're not qualified, but it really isn't about that. It's about just working really hard.
Mhm.
And once you make something, it's great because you have no idea what what will lead to, so the important thing is just putting in the work, making something and putting out there for the world, and you never know where that will lead you. So
Yeah.
but I think a lot of us are, I know certainly me, I don't know if you guys had this experience in New England, but I grew up with this, I don't know, I don't know if it's unique to New England, but I grew up with this, it seemed like the attitude around me was like, oh, yeah, that's for those fancy people out there in Hollywood, not for you. You're just gonna stay here with us losers, like it just, I always got this idea that like I couldn't do anything, that was for like special people. And then I realized maybe a lot later that I should have. It's like, no, it's not. It's for you. It's for whoever wants to just take control and work hard, but yeah, there's definitely a self-defeatist New England thing that I suffered from, at least growing up.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
definitely. And that's the thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
I was gonna say that was the thing too. We started off just doing like monthly movie nights and stuff like that, and our goal was always to have a podcast. And then we took advantage of that during the pandemic and kind of created that. And so now we're being able to like interview people like yourselves and like other people that starred in other films. And so it's like we didn't think that we would be able to be at this point. You know what I mean? And so it's like you said, we just took that chance and kind of just ran with it. So.
Yeah, and the only difference between you and somebody else is that you guys actually did it,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sitting around talking about it all the time,
And we're old dudes, so I mean, it took us a while to get the to get the ability to just be like, all right, we guys got to do this. So I mean, I think that's a great lesson for anybody that's listening and that has an idea or a dream that they want to do. You just got to take a risk at some point. You can't just wait for that opportunity to come.
Yeah, for sure.
So now Allegoria is set to release on demand and Shudder on August 2nd. Can you guys tell us and the listeners about the film?
Yeah, I mean, Allegoria is a sort of pseudo anthology. It's not really a traditional anthology, but it is made up of 5 separate stories. But the difference in this movie is that all the stories do interconnect through character and circumstance. And it's based around basically art and monsters, art and horror. We focus on a different art form in each story and how those artists egos and insecurities and obsessions manifest these horrible things in their lives and get passed on to the next person. So it was really fun to dive into that world because art and horror share a lot of things, and just like I've said this before, but just the way artists are described, as being tortured or suffering. I mean, those are just horror movie, horror movie descriptions, right? So it made perfect sense to me. And being, a person that spent their life trying to exist as a creative person, it was a really personal thing for me to relate to this idea of that struggle, in the times that you're doubting yourself and the times that you don't know what's next, and those moments when you look at yourself in the mirror and go like, what the fuck have you done? Like, what are you doing? Go get a real job, so it's sort of based around that whole concept,
Yeah.
So now Vincent van Gogh's final words, "The sadness will last forever," sets the tone for this film, being one of the first things to appear on the screen in the opening credits. Can you explain what that quote means to this film?
I mean, for me, the Vincent van Gogh quote, and who knows if that's real, right? Like
my first instinct when I saw that was like, no way.
It was something I researched, and it was, as far as I know, that, but it almost doesn't matter, right? Because to me, the sentiment is that, Van Gogh to me is the ultimate tortured artist. When we reference him a couple times in the movie, and just the, this idea that he cut his own ear off, it's really, like there's no other physical manifestation that we could have used it as an example to represent the tortured artist. So I just thought it was like like you said, set the tone for what everybody was in for.
Yeah. The film's title for me is just so fitting for what the film is. Like, you know, it's a metaphor for everything that you're trying to show. And there's so many themes in here that I loved. I think Brandon, I know had since we had talked about it prior to this interview, just like the creative process is what this is really about. And it's about the where it can take us, the duality that exists in all of us, having, you know, good and evil. And, you know, it's interesting because it's like, it's in all of us. There's this idea of good and evil in all of us. And like, sometimes our artistic expression can bring that out in kind of a safer way. But in here we see it in some other ways. So like for you, aside from just the creative process, what other themes were you trying to capture in here?
I mean, I just think the frailty of people, you know. I think artists tend to wear it on their sleeves more than most people, but I think we all share that, you know. There's multiple scenes in the movie of people staring at themselves in the mirror. And I always thought that was such a great representation of those most vulnerable moments we all have, you know, when you're looking at yourself and you're just maybe don't recognize yourself, or, you know, whether it's like, man, you got old, or man, you fucked up, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of reference to that. So I really think it's, you know, and it's also about, you know, how you represent yourself. You know, Marcus, the painter character in the movie is kind of like the clearest example of putting on this bravado of how talented he is and how much better he is. He's, you know, he looks down on his girlfriend for wanting to act because that's not real art, and etc. But then when he's alone, he's just you know, he looks at himself as a fraud. And you know, I think these things are scary. You know, I've joked before that, like, in terms of horror, we could live 100 years and never be chased down the street by a guy in a hockey mask with an axe, but we all will have those moments of self-doubt and anxiety and panic and so I think that, you know, even if you're not an artist, I think you will see yourself in some of these people.
The author one was me. Then what really, like, it's the questioning after, and like, you know, that he gets from the character he's created.
It's as if your script could talk back to you. You know?
And that's what I loved. Every one of these was a metaphor for a different variation or some kind of situation like that. But it was like, it also fit for different personalities, and you could kind of, like, you know, see other people, you know, through those lenses. And it was really, really well done.
It's very interesting to hear what resonates with people, you know, because I've done a lot of interviews today, and which stories. And some people are like, man, that story with Scout and Adam Bush, that was the one that hit home. And then other people have said, yeah, the screenwriting one. And I think that's it makes me excited that it seems to be the intent of the film is working, where people are seeing themselves in these people, you know.
Speaking of Scout, what was it like to work with her? Her segment was awesome. She did great in that.
Yeah, Scout's great. I mean, she's a brilliant actress, and we've been friends with Scout for quite a while now. And I think I met Scout on the set of Halloween 2 when she was probably 19 or 20, or so we've remained friends. And, you know, the cool part about this role for Scout is that it really is, you know, except for the murdering, killing part, like, really that feels like who the real Scout is, you know what I mean? Sure. The Scout will play the victim a lot in movies, or, you know, other roles but to me, this, you know, Scout's a very charming, warm person in person, and I felt like this role was such a great opportunity for her to show that side of her, because it feels, don't you think it feels like most naturally like her?
Yeah, I think so. I think both of the projects, she's actually in our new film coming out as well, and both of them, it's like, yeah, she actually really gets to be her. She's seriously sunshine in the room. So and yeah, everybody thinks so. So yeah, definitely, I agree.
Yeah. Opposite of sunshine in the room, Krsy.
Yeah,
your character was pretty awesome also. Yeah, so this is not a spoiler for anyone listening, because this happens within, like, the first segment of the movie, but your character has a quick transition into like a demonic character. And I was just curious, like, you take your version of a demon is a little different than some others we've seen.
Yeah.
Definitely gruesome and very cool effects. So like, what were you trying to pull from with how you were portraying the demon?
I think this character is really unique because we've seen a lot of possession films, but she's just so sweet and sad, and everybody treats her awful, and all she wants is just to, her boyfriend, she wants him to be proud of her. She just wants to be happy and excited for her little wins, and just like nothing ever seems to go her way. And then obviously all of these horrible things continue to happen to her. She's abused by her acting coach, and it's just, so I just wanted to really, beyond obviously the scariness of her, I wanted her sadness to be in there. And I also just imagine if you've gone through all that, and then you always are just a sweet person, and then you finally just let everything out. And that's kind of what happened in the moment with Ennis. Just, I literally stood there for 3 hours with that guy screaming at me. So, it wasn't hard and spitting on me to just be like, I want to kill you, and then that's just kind of what naturally came out. And his reaction to me was almost funny, because it's what would really happen. And he just cowers like a little girl, and it's so, I think it really worked. But I think it's just, I thought a lot about what this poor girl's going through, and also just, I can relate to it. I'm an actress. I've been there. I've been, you go through a lot of heartbreak and a lot of rejection and a lot of struggling. So I think I think that this character was an extremely sweet version of, a lot of actresses I've known. So yeah, it wasn't that hard to just be like, and that was the first thing we shot, was when the Ennis scene, which was, we shot my secondary stuff much later. I don't know, 6 months later or something, right, Spider? Yeah. So it was cool to go back to that, and then also get to have some moments where she gets to be a little more human and a little more, you kind of get to understand her a little bit. And
I love the way it wrapped back around. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, that was what I was going to say, is that story number 5 is really story number 1.
Yeah.
We open and we have no idea why is this happening, and so to have to go to the very end of the film to find out, the 6 notes and this and that, the whole thing it was a really fun puzzle to put together.
Yeah,
definitely. It was cool to get to bring the monster back too, not just have it one time. And you get to see a different version of it. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Dave was saying earlier, we were kind of talking about the film. I just love the creativity of the film, with you both being musicians, writers, directors, and producers and podcasters. People don't often see or understand how much creativity can affect a person. This film really made me look at what we have going on as a group as PVD Horror. There's 3 of us. One of us couldn't make it today. Okay. It's not always perfect, and sometimes we create our own insecurities and manifest ourselves into monsters, like in the film. And so, with you both being in groups, what are some things that you guys kind of did to kind of ease the issues and the tension throughout the years, to not have those monsters being created?
Oh.
Yeah, good question. I feel like for me, it's just constant, I always say, you got a reset button. You're constantly resetting, because you're always trying to figure out what's next and how do I make that happen. And it's always on your shoulders. There's no one coming to you going, hey, we did this for you, and you now go do it. So you're all, whether it's writing a new album, writing a script, whatever it is, it's like you're in this constant loop of resetting your energy. You've got to be your own best biggest cheerleader, because the world, at least modern world and internet world, seems to just want to see everybody fail. So you have to be there always, and which is great. Now we have each other to be a cheerleader for each other. But for me, I mean, it's really as simple as that. Just believing in yourself and knowing that, you said a perfect point. You said it's not always perfect. And I think that's exactly how you should think about everything you do, because there is no such thing, especially with art. There's no perfect, the important thing is that it exists, and it may be someone's favorite movie in the world, or somebody may watch it and say, this is the worst piece of garbage I've ever seen. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that it exists in the world, and it will do something for somebody, you know. So just to be, just to always be on your own side is important.
Yeah, I think like too, just regardless whether it's touring and you're just having a, you know, the tour's long and you're exhausted and you're trying to get to the next show, you have to like celebrate the little wins and the little things. So it's like, you know, if you have a 17-hour drive and you haven't slept in 4 days and you've barely eaten, but then you're like, but I get to play a show and all these people came out and they want to see you play and they want to hear your song. So you have to like take the time to appreciate the little wins. Or, you know, we just got to screen Allegoria in front of a couple audiences, like after all of this work, and we got to sit there and like watch it and hear people react. Like you got to take that in and celebrate it for what it is. It's a huge accomplishment. You have to be allowed to be proud of yourself and allowed to just enjoy like the little moments. I think people forget too sometimes.
I think if you get older too, you things don't stress you out as much. Like I remember the days of like, you know, if my microphone wouldn't work, I'd slam it on the, you know, flip off the sound guy and storm. Now I'm like, whatever. Like, here's, you know, you just sort of, you realize things that don't matter. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
So that's helped a lot too.
All right. Appreciate that.
Let me ask, is there a segment in Allegoria that either of you like resonated more with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think weirdly enough, I think the character I got to play, I resonated with her the most because of being an actress, and like I said, and because of going through disappointments and going through struggles. I'm not as insecure or necessarily as like, I don't let, you know, my boyfriend treat me like that. And I don't, you know, I wouldn't put up with that from an acting coach, but you know, everyone has, you know, those weird insecurities inside of them. And also just like the sadness for that girl, because you know what, like I started at a young age, and I, like Spider says, as you get older, every little thing doesn't get to you. You kind of go with it more. But when I was younger, I didn't feel like that. And so I really did connect to even the moment in the doorway with the monologue and how emotional it felt. Like I felt that in the moment, just thinking about what this poor girl's gone through and what's inside of her and what she's struggling with. And so definitely I felt like that. And I think Spider will say this and he could talk more, but I think for him, he's 100% like the painter.
So that's what you said.
I do.
I was like, because she's like, what's your favorite one? You know, and I'm like, I don't really have a favorite, but I do really, there's something about the painting one. I don't know. I really love it. And I just think, and she's like, that's because it's you.
True.
Like, really? Am I that terrible?
No, he's not as mean as him, but the way he is with his painting, when Spider's painting, it's like it's a great moment if he's having a good day with it, and if not, you stay the fuck away from
him. Will we ever see a full-length film about Big Baby? And that is a question from our third member, Joshua, who's not here today.
He is not the first to ask for that. Trust me. Every time we screen it, the first question is like, all right, when are we going to see the Big Baby movie? I have a feeling that we have no choice at this point to at least make some Big Baby. Maybe it'll be a short film or something, but we have to do something with Big Baby. People just love it. It's so ridiculous and so funny. We have a 3-year-old, almost 3-year-old daughter, and she's obsessed with Big Baby. She just wants to watch that part over and over and over.
Yeah, not to mention she knows the entire monologue from my end scene, which is really weird for a 2-year-old to be like saying death needs more death. And yeah, that's really her.
All right. So Spider, I want to ask you, you know, I know that obviously the creative styling differences of you and your brother are probably already there. But I was curious, like taking this venture, creating horror films, was that something that was like present in your mind that you also want to like make it separate from anything that looks or resembles a Rob Zombie type film? Just because you feel like there might be, you know, not that it would happen, but like sometimes we kind of feel like, is it going to be compared to my brother?
Yeah, no, I mean, I expect those comparisons for sure. I mean, the funny thing is that me and Rob are very, very similar people, like personally, like, you know what I mean? the way we speak, the way that, you know, the things we love, the things we grew up loving, watching, very similar like taste in movies and music, but when it comes down to it, we do have very different aesthetics when we create, you know what I mean? Like he is, you know, it is unmistakably Rob, you know what I mean? And this movie is definitely not a Rob movie, you know what I mean? It just isn't. So I think that's kind of cool. I think people will appreciate that. But it's not, I guess you're asking, is it's not a conscious decision to try not to be like him, you know what I mean? Because I don't know what I know what the next thing we're doing is, but you know, down the line there might be something that is more in that world. I don't know, but you know, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. I hope people will be appreciative of the differences and the similarities of the things that we do, because you know, we did grow up together, and we lived off the same influences, and but
I don't know. As an outsider, though, I have to say, like, they both have such a like specific style that's very different. Like, I watch both, and knowing them both so well, like, it's just, yeah, I can't even imagine them making something that would be similar. It's just they just stylistically, naturally, even the way they both paint, it's very different.
Yeah.
And that's cool, because I think, like, yeah, like their influences come from the same place, but it almost like split apart and took two separate versions of that, which is special and very rare that two siblings do the same thing, and that is the case, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Rob's influence on me has been, I think, through example. You know, I think Rob is probably more than anyone that I know, the most uncompromising person, you know, when it comes to creating. You know, he will do or die, love it or hate it. He's going to do what he wants to do, you know, and which is rare in this business, because it's so hard to make a movie or to have a TV show or to write an album, that it's very tempting to compromise and bend, and, well, they want me to do it this way. But, you know, Rob is from day one always just stuck to his guns and made the kind of movies that he wants to make and the kind of albums that he wants to make. So I think that really, beyond like stylistically, that has been the biggest influence for me, is to see that and see that it's possible to do that and go like, I'm going to do what I want to do. You know, you don't have to like it, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, I can walk away from it knowing like it's exactly how I want it to be.
Yeah. I love that. You know, I just wanted to say one thing that I think your style, I can't wait to see future films, because I enjoy the style of this film, and I can't wait to see what else you're going to bring us. But one thing that I think is a similarity is just looks different, kind of like what Krsy was saying, how you guys are doing two similar things but in different variations. Your use of music, and you did it very different. Like his soundtracks are very like, you know, a Rob Zombie soundtrack to a film, a score, like with yours, it was like this beautiful music that created this tense moment, or like in the opening scene right there, the use of music to create a feeling was so present, and it's similar in his films too. So I think you guys both utilize it in different ways, but it's there. And for me, I loved it. Right as soon as the title flashes, I was like, oh, this is I know what we're in for here.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all appreciate, you know, as being musicians, and how important sound and music is in a film. You know, arguably more important than the way the film looks. You know, because your eyes will adjust to anything, but your ears, it's a different. You know, so I think that you're right. I think the use of soundscapes and music and sound design is. You know, we've all heard the classic stories of Halloween and Jaws and all these movies that just weren't working until the right piece of music was in there, or you know, and it's true. We'll run into that. We'll be editing, and a scene it's just like, it's maybe not working, and then suddenly start creeping in some sounds, some tones, and then all of a sudden it becomes a whole different thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just even the gore element sometimes, just like when you get that extra sound in there, you're like, oh my God, this is so hard to watch now. Whereas before it was like, oh, okay. Yeah, It's just disgusting. It's so much fun.
Yeah, so just checking out Allegoria, like I can't wait to check out the like a project that you guys worked on called Bury the Bride that you both co-wrote and produced. Like I can't wait to check that out. Is there a release date set for that?
Not yet. I mean, it'll be next year,
Okay.
hopefully, or sooner than later. But yeah, Bury the Bride is we definitely took it up a notch. If Allegoria is like a cerebral movie, Bury the Bride's a physical movie. It's like it's intense, and it's a smart movie, but it's definitely a lot more. I guess physical is the term. There's more, I guess, action and
it feels very heavy too, don't you think, Spider? Like we were talking about, like the first week of me starting to edit this, I was in this dark funk, and I realized it's because the movie affected me so much, and just like the characters you grow attached to, and just seeing like these things that are happening to them. And even Spider was saying we did all night shoots on this film, and he would be driving home after a character died in the film, and he was like sad, like he like lost somebody. He was just it messed with you.
Yeah, because you grow attached not only to the actors but the characters, and you clearly they're not really dying, but there is something that like happens to you when you're shooting the death scene, and especially with talented actors, and you're believing it, and you go home like feeling a little bit bummed out, like, man, we really killed off Carmen tonight. That's awful. Like, why'd we do that? But
no, it's super. It's a super cool. And one of the funnest parts, me and Scout got to play sisters, which was so much fun because I just love working with Scout.
Awesome.
But sadly, we argue like 95% of the movie. So
oh geez.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes, we do.
But yeah, it was quite a undertaking. Bury the Bride was like Krsy said, we shot all nights. And in the middle of the desert in Lancaster, California, with like Santa Ana winds, 50-mile-an-hour winds, sand tornadoes, rattlesnakes.
Oh yeah.
It was, I mean, you've heard stories of like, shooting Apocalypse Now and Jaws, and how this is going to be one of those movies where we finally tell the story of how this thing was made. It was rough.
We all look like hell in it too, which is amazing. Like I've never looked so beat up in a film, but I was supposed to, I guess. So it's good. But
I remember distinctly night 6, probably 3 a.m. in the morning. We still had to shoot like 2 more scenes, and we had to shoot this scene with this something terrible happens to someone in a car, and I'm just like, it's not quite working, and it's just I remember crews all around. And I remember thinking in my head, I just want to lay on the floor, curl up a ball, and say, I can't do this, guys. It was so exhausting. But we did it. We made it through it.
We did it. Yeah.
I can't wait to check it out once it's all finished.
Yeah. Sooner than later, hopefully.
Yeah.
All right. And hopefully, if the timing's right, you guys can come on here and tell everybody about it when
we'll definitely give you all the backstory once it's out.
Make sure you have a couple hours for that one.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so Allegoria, we said what, August 2nd will be on Shudder?
Yeah.
I think technically I think you can see it on Shudder August 1st. But and then it'll be August 2nd VOD, so we just kind of, to keep it simple, saying August 2nd.
Oh, we should mention too, we're doing a watch along with Rue Morgue on August 1st, which you can join if you go to their site, and you can, Spider and I are going to do a Q&A and watch along, so that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Can you guys let people to know where to find you on social media if they want to follow you guys, your films, all that stuff?
I'm Krsy Fox on everything, on Instagram, Facebook, actually Twitter, I'm Knee-High Fox. And you can follow One Fox Productions as well if you want to see what we have coming up, and we have a website.
Cool. Yeah, same thing. I'm mainly on Instagram, Spider1, and then official Powerman 5000, of course, if you're interested in the band. And everywhere.
You got some upcoming tour dates too?
Well, I'm on the road right now. So this is a day off. So this is my day off, doing interviews in Jacksonville, Florida, in a Holiday Inn. So but I'm gonna try to get out and go see Nope tonight. So I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, or
I haven't seen it yet.
So excited to see it. I want to see it so bad.
Hearing good things though.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I was bummed out because I seen you guys are coming to Mansfield then on Sunday, and I'm not going to be in town. So I was like, oh damn, I want to go check out the show.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe I'm playing. Well, I don't think they call it Great Woods anymore, right? What's it called?
No, it's
Xfinity
Center.
I've seen so many concerts there. I'm like, man, I'm
Yeah.
getting to play Great Woods. Amazing.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. This has been awesome, and we love the film. So I really can't tell people enough to check this out. I think it's unique and it's something people haven't seen before. And I really do think people are going to love it.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for coming.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Take it easy.
Thank you guys. Have a great night.
You too. Take care.